Farage has unveiled what he grandly styles an alternative budget, a £25 billion package of supposed savings that he insists could plug Rachel Reeves' fiscal hole without raising taxes on British households. But when you read the fine print, it becomes clear that this is not economics, not strategy, and certainly not mathematics. It's a manifesto of spite, a ledger of punishments aimed squarely at EU citizens and the world's poorest people, drafted with the deliberate theatricality of a man who's always preferred conflict to competence. Farage is proposing that the budget be balanced by stripping welfare from EU citizens with settled status, tripling the NHS surcharge for migrants, deporting all foreign national offenders, slashing the foreign aid budget by around 90%. The premise is simple. If the numbers do not add up, change the people they apply to. This is not tax policy, it is Brexit resentment turned into a fiscal cudgel. The first idea of taxing EU citizens, which is a direct breach of Britain's post-Brexit treaty, begin with the headline proposal here, ending universal credit for EU citizens who have settled status under the withdrawal agreement. Farage knows that this is not merely provocative, it's unlawful. It would tear up the very treaty Britain signed when it left the EU, a treaty based on reciprocity. Tear it up and Brussels will not send a thank you note. It will respond legally, economically, commercially, and it will do so swiftly. A trade war is not hypothetical here. It is the explicit consequence. The EU would retaliate because it must, or face accusations from its own members that it allowed a third country to break a treaty without consequence. Food prices would rise, customs friction would return, British exporters would be hit first and hardest, and all of this because Farage wants to balance the books by humiliating Europeans living perfectly legally in the UK. This is putting British people first. It's spectacularly self-defeating. It's a method that is peculiarly Faragian and peculiarly wrong. The second point, the NHS surcharge, is a revenue mirage. Farage then promises £5 billion by almost tripling the NHS surcharge for migrants, taking it from £1,035 to £2,718. This is presented as hard-nosed realism, but it is pure theatre. The surcharge exists to help fund the NHS, but it's also a deterrent. If you raise it too high, fewer people will pay for it. Farage is proposing a fee so punitive it would deter exactly the migrants who work in the NHS and social care and the people whose presence keeps the system functional. And when the staff shortages deepen, what will happen then? When hospital wards lose nurses, when care homes cannot operate, the economic cost of understaffing will dwarf any theoretical revenue. What Farage is offering is not fiscal prudence, it's a populist gesture designed to irritate, not to solve. We saw that earlier. It was called Brexit. Whether the original plan or the implementation, who cares? It's still Brexit. The third idea, the foreign aid cuts, the return of the Little England economics. Then this is the most morally threadbare section of Farage's plan, cutting overseas aid by 90% to £1 billion, a proposal that would undo decades of British influence, leaving the world's poorest countries to fend for themselves while Britain claims virtue by having tightened its belt. Aid is soft power, stabilisation, disease prevention, international leverage. Remove it and Britain becomes smaller in every possible sense. Farage frames this as ending roads to nowhere in Guyana or family planning in Pakistan, using isolated examples to smear the entire aid architecture. But cutting aid is not a saving. It is an abdication of responsibility, one that will cost far more when fragile states collapse, migration rises, and Britain loses the global partnerships it still relies on. It is austerity for the world's poorest, masquerading as fiscal responsibility at home. Then he's got the fourth idea, deporting all foreign offenders, an old slogan in new clothing. Reform claims £580 million will be saved by deporting all foreign national offenders immediately. This is another fantasy number. Deportations do not occur without legal process, home country agreements and bureaucratic capacity, as well as the tickets on the planes. Most countries refuse to take prisoners back. Others impose limits. Some prisoners are stateless. You cannot deport people simply because a manifesto says you should. The figure is a notional nonsense. It's as ridiculous as the policy is impractical. The larger political project that he's got, what links all these proposals, they share a single clear theme. Make foreign nationals pay for Britain's fiscal pressures, irrespective of legal obligations, economic consequences or diplomatic fallout. That's the same story as Brexit, isn't it? This style of politics is not new. It is the successor to the Brexit referendum's darker rhetoric, a vision in which Britain's problems are always someone else's fault. Brussels, migrants, aid, the aid recipients, international law. It's a narrative of permanent grievance. Farage's budget is an act of political nostalgia, a return to the thriving simplicity of blaming Europe for everything. The problem is not nostalgia, but a fiscal plan, and spite is not a substitute for revenue base. The consequences of the Brexit reset, and all of this lands at precisely the moment when Keir Starmer's government is trying painstakingly to stabilise relations with Brussels. The EU is already asking for British contributions to schemes like Erasmus, Agri-Food Cooperation, energy trading, and defence instruments like SAFE. There is disagreement over money, timing, and reciprocity. Trust is fragile. And into that environment, Farage proposes that Britain unilaterally breaks the Brexit treaty by stripping rights from EU citizens. It is political arson. Whatever Starmer's negotiators might achieve in smoothing trade or linking carbon markets would instantly be jeopardised. If the aim is to collapse the fragile reset and revive Brexit-era battles, this is the one way to do it. What this really is the budget as culture war. Farage is staging a budget, not writing one. The numbers don't add up, the proposals are unlawful, unenforceable, economically self-sabotaging, but that is not the purpose. The purpose is to signal that he will fight Brussels again, that he will revive the old energies of 2016, that he will tell a portion of the electorate that the enemy is not fiscal reality, but the foreigner. The danger is obvious. A country cannot grow by shrinking its moral horizon. It cannot balance its books by waging war on its neighbours. It cannot rebuild its economy while picking avoidable fights with its largest trading partner. Yet that is the direction Farage proposes, a budget of grievances exported to the poorest countries in the world, inflicted on the EU citizens who live among us, work among us, contribute to our society. This is not a route back to economic stability. It's a return to the political habits that made Britain poorer, lonelier, and more fractious. Farage's budget is a morality tale disguised as a fiscal plan, a parable in which foreigners must pay for Britain's misfortunes because confronting the real causes would require grown-up politics. The truth is simple. If you build a budget on spite, it will collapse under the weight of its own resentment, and the country will pay the price long before a single EU citizen even gets off his chair or gets off her chair. Long before that happens, Britain will be on its knees.